As we look at global economics, we look at it and split things off in terms of how developing and developed nations are performing. When you look at developed nations, you see the US, Europe economies recovering, but still recovering fairly slowly. So you look at developing nations, we tend to look and focus on China, and we see that growth, while strong, still some question marks. So we keep a close eye on what's going on with China. Bringing it all together, it's not just about the markets, it's also where the resource bases are for the future. And we see developing nations is where we'll be doing more of that work in the future. We still see supply and demand actually quite a good position for gold here over the medium to long term. China has recently, just this year, taken over from India in terms of the largest consumer of gold. So that's one key demographic change that's really changed over the last decade when it comes to gold. We don't see that slowing down as you continue to see the growth in urban populations and the value that people place on gold ownership in places like China and in India, and here even in the US we've seen great demand as prices have come off here recently. There are a number of issues and risks that can impact Newmont and the mining industry's growth prospects. From my standpoint, it's about having good leadership that's out there, that's listening to what's going on and paying attention to what the concerns are within the communities and within the regions that we work. It's really about driving better shared value between what we develop and what we deliver into a region. When you look at our operations lasting numerous decades, governments change over that time frame. Probably the common denominator along with our operations is the local communities and what their expectations are. They'll be the ones that were on the ground when our exploration geologists first showed up. They will be the ones that are there when we have the ribbon cutting ceremony when we open, and down the road 30 years, 40 years later when we start to do and work through closure. So they're the common denominator, and you really need to work closely, and is the reason why you need to work closely with the local communities throughout the process. As we look at where we're going to work, we actually take a step back. Is this a country we want to be in? And we don't look at just the situation today. We try to look where are they going to be 10, 20 years from now. I can think of our involvement in Peru. Back when we made the decision to invest in Peru, we had Shining Path and issues around that, but we could see beyond that the potential of what that democracy in Peru would have and what it would have in terms of being able to develop that resource. So I think that's a good example of how we've got to look over the horizon at what's possible, be aware of all the risks. When you've got our exploration folks, obviously you got to look after their security. You've got to make sure how they present themselves in the local community is in an acceptable manner. They need to be in and actually take the time to hear what the local residents' concerns are, what the history is, because if you get it wrong in the beginning, it's very hard to press a reset button. When we look at technology in the mining industry, and over the course of my career, it's tended to be bigger is better. Bigger haul trucks, bigger shovels, better, maybe more automated mining methods. For us in particular, we're looking at implementing a new method for being able to recover copper that heretofore was not economic to recover by the use of bioleaching techniques down in Peru. And we've just started producing copper here earlier this past month. From this technique, and it's those sorts of technologies, looking at different ways to be able to extract metals economically, safely, environmentally friendly ways that are important for our future. When you look at employees and local communities, the big change I've seen in the last 5 to 10 years is how interconnected they are. We can do one thing in Ghana and it shows up in Indonesia right away. People know what's going on. So I think it really is driving us, and it drives the industry, to be very transparent about what you're doing. And you have to explain to people why you do certain things the way you do them along the way, because the whole world is very well connected. The term sustainable development has evolved here over the last 15 to 20 years. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have heard that term as it applies to mining. I think what it's brought about for the industry is really raising the awareness of what it means to improve things like biodiversity and when you're dealing with the environmental side. Economic improvements aren't just about what the mining companies get or what royalties you pay. It's what sort of shared value, how you set things up in a region or in a community for shared jobs. And social development is what's the long-term impact with the communities, and where do they stand once you're done. You want to leave things in a position where people are actually better off after you've been there.